purchasing a property near the University of Tennessee as an investment or for a student/family member. If that is you, this video is for you because we're going to talk about some things to consider, some numbers. Does it make sense? UT housing costs versus a potential investment property and purchasing a home. So in this video, let's talk about those things. I do want to tell you, if you are a data person and you want to see actual numbers across zip codes, days on market, long-term investment, then go see the data deep dive video. In this video, I'm just going to talk about some things to consider as you're looking at areas, what kind of property you want, what would make sense for your specific situation. So let's dive in and get going. I am Haley Jones. If you are new to my channel, hi, I am a Knoxville real estate agent, Knoxville and East Tennessee area, and I actually have been to classes at UT. That's where I got my teacher certification. So that being said, I know the area very well, and I also have clients who do this exact same thing. I've had clients that have purchased as investment. I've had clients that have purchased because they have a student, etc. So there's all kinds of different kind of purposes and reasons why people do this. And so I'm kind of coming from that lens as a local person, but also having dealt with clients that do this on a regular basis. So that being said, that's kind of what's informing this. When you're thinking about, does this make sense? Obviously, the first thing you're thinking about is from a numbers perspective. So if we look at kind of the housing that University of Tennessee offers, across the board, by the way, I'm going to be talking about cost per month because that's the most standard amount. So obviously, when we are looking at cost for University of Tennessee housing, if you go to the website, it's going to be per semester. So what I've done is I've taken the per semester numbers, I've doubled them for 2 semesters, and then I've divided by 12 to get a monthly rent amount. So bear in mind that these prices for the housing, UT housing costs are really actually more like a 10-month amount, 9 or 10 months, because you're not having May, June, July for the most part. So just bear that in mind that there's 3 months missing, but if we just look across the board for the sake of standardization, it's all based on a per month amount for 12 months. The other thing to note is a lot of the apartment complexes that offer student housing, they don't say monthly amount, they say installment because it's a installment payment for the length of the lease rather than a monthly amount. That's just a little bit of semantics, but again, I'm talking about all these in terms of a monthly amount. So we're taking the total amount, dividing by 12, essentially. So that being said, some things to consider. First of all, if you have a University of Tennessee student, must live on campus their freshman year. That's one thing to consider. The other thing to think about is, do you want to be paying for housing? Obviously, there's all kinds of dynamics to this. Financial aid, scholarship, like all the different pieces to the housing decision. And so for sake of ease, sometimes it is easier just to be on campus. But also, University of Tennessee is huge. So some students don't want to do that. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you would rather use your housing financial aid for something off campus, right? So there's all kinds of different scenarios and situations. But if we look at just from a numbers perspective, the cheapest per month that I found student housing was $507.50. And so that specifically, if you're like, where'd you get that number? So that was at Massey. I call them dorms. It's a dorm. And that is if you shared, not a single. If a single was like $706 was the cheapest. So that's going to be your cheapest investment. Again, that's across 12 months. So that doesn't really account for housing in the summer. Now, the most expensive that I found for student housing at UT was $983 a month. There's a lot of 975s, 983s, 950s, 910, so stuff like that. And so those are more of the apartment, like you've got a room, probably 3 or 4 people, but you do have a room, you have a bathroom kind of situation. So just want to tell you that there's all kinds of different options when it comes to housing and the pricing. So if you are thinking, how would I beat a $500 a month? Like, could I do a $500 a month mortgage? Probably not. Like, probably you're going to need to purchase a property with at least 2 or 3 bedrooms, and you're going to want to rent to at least 3 people, most likely. So we're going to talk a little bit about those numbers. So just from a student housing perspective, 507 was the cheapest. High end, almost 1,000. 983. Now these numbers are as of the 2024-25 school year. So this is going to change, but we're taking this with a grain of salt and just to get an idea of the bigger picture. So if we anchor that 507 to 983, what are rents costing? So it depends, of course, on area. One of the closest areas that you could consider would be South Knoxville. So that's 37920. And those are places like, if you were to go Google student housing, that would be 303 Flats, One Riverwalk, the Davie, Flagship Kern. So those are all brand new, literally across Henley Street, student housing. And when I say brand new, I mean literally like the Davie opened, I think like in August of 2024, like literally like new, smells new, looks new. And then, some of them are not as new, but still, they're brand new. So those on average are about $1,500 per person. So you're like, ugh, well, why would I do that? Okay, well, those are also walkable. So you don't need a parking permit. So that's a consideration to think about. They're also new, they're nice. If you're wanting swank, they got the swank, okay? Now, you also have, so if you have campus and you've got here's the Tennessee, or I guess here's campus, Tennessee River, South Knox is south of campus, right? So you've got stuff that's newer. So if you were to look at a map and you look at where's the Henley Street Bridge, Flagship, you're gonna see Kern's Food Hall. So that's like a hot spot, okay? New, up and coming, tons of investment right there. That is new. But you have a separate piece of South Knox that's just across the river from the University of Tennessee Medical Center. And those are properties like the Woodlands, Knox Ridge, Quarry Trail, Red Point. So all of those are also rental places. And those on average are about $1,098.63 to be exact per month. So again, they do not call this a monthly rent. They call it an installment because it's a total amount for 12 months. Now, the minimum that I found, for example, in some of these, like the Woodlands, for example, the minimum I found was $720. And then some of them were as high as $1197, $1256 in Red Point was one of the highest. And so you've got all kinds of across the gamut. Now still, both of those are still more expensive than what you would pay for student housing. The ones that are new, close to Kern's Bakery, the Davie, the Flats, all of that stuff, those are walkable. So that's something to consider. The ones that are behind University of Tennessee Medical Center, literally go to Google Maps, see University of Tennessee Medical Center, and across the river, if you just put the Woodlands, you're gonna see this road that winds. Those are not walkable unless you just want to wear a helmet, because those roads are very narrow and they're double yellow lined and people fly down them. But they have a bus, a shuttle. There we go. They have a shuttle to campus. Now that's specific times, right? So it's not as if you can just call the shuttle. It's not like an Uber, but you wouldn't necessarily need a parking permit if you were living in those. You just need to be a planner. You need to plan ahead, okay? Or you need to have a friend that will drop you off. Or you could call Uber. Anyways, you'll figure it out. Or your kid, you won't. Your kid will. So that's something that's across the river, South Knox. So somewhere between $1,500-ish for newer, closer to $1,000, not as new, and as low as $700. In which case that could make more sense than the majority of University of Tennessee housing. So something to think about there. If we look at Cumberland Avenue, so that's basically what's going through campus that's new. Your average per person is about $1,300 per month. Now there's a ton of new apartments that have sprung up on Cumberland. Back in the day, there was nothing on there. There were not apartment buildings like what you see now. And so the lowest rent I found was $994. But that obviously had zero occupancy. That's a delusion. If you can find that, you're lucky, but I'm also guessing that $994 probably doesn't have amenities like laundry. Okay. Somewhere between $994 to the most expensive I found was $2,100 a month. So you could pretty much run the gamut. However, if you're on Cumberland Avenue, if you're in that fort, this is also the fort, anything that's basically campus adjacent. If you are in that area, you could not have a car, essentially. You don't need a parking permit. You're going to be walking to campus. And some of these, especially the ones that are in the fort or just literally one street off of Cumberland, you're closer to campus than some of the further away campus housing. especially the apartment leases that, UT has that are down Alcoa Highway. So certainly you're paying for convenience, and some of that is all of that stuff, Cumberland Avenue, the Fort, that's all walkable. And if you want to look on Google, I would just put Slate 901 or Nova Knoxville. Those are some of the apartment buildings there, and you can see exactly, basically you're on campus essentially. So you're going to pay for that. If we look at Old City and downtown, so this to me doesn't necessarily make sense because it's a little bit further and it's a little bit higher. This does, however, make sense for if you are wanting a little nicer, if you are wanting a property that you would be comfortable to stay at, like when you come visit your kid. I have some clients who do that. It's, they've purchased in a building that's very nice and their kiddo lives there, but they also use this as a place for like when they come in town for games. They don't need to get a hotel. They have a place there. It's nice. It's got amenities. And so if you're looking at Old City and downtown, your average rent per month is going to be about $1,700. So certainly that's going to be more expensive than what you would pay for it on campus. But it depends on what the long-term purpose is and how long you're keeping it. This might not be something that you buy and you only keep for 2 years because, the higher price, the more long-term return you're going to want to get. So if you're looking at the Old City downtown area, you're going to be paying significantly more, and that's a better fit for probably something you're keeping for longer, or if you're using it for more than just the purpose of like your student to house. Just my thought. Like obviously you do you. And then as a side note, if we were to look at like sorority and fraternity costs, these vary like vastly based on the sorority houses, and you can go see like there's a whole breakdown of like what they are and the kind of the amenities. So that's just something else to consider. Fraternities somewhere between $1,500 to $5,200 a semester. Sororities somewhere between $2,500 to $4,000. So obviously that's a different sort of investment in the sense that that's more of a network social investment. So, if you want that, then maybe you do that investment instead. All of these are options. So that being said, having known this, so far what we know is if you're thinking campus, you're thinking somewhere between $507 to just under $1,000 per month. Again, we're looking at over the course of 12 months. Then if we look at rent costs, we're looking somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500, max $1,700, or you could like some of these in like downtown, Old City, Church and Henley, $4,000 a month. So it's kind of like the sky's the limit in terms of rent. Not literally, like no one's gonna be paying $10,000 a month. Or there's not even, I don't think there's anything that you could purchase that'd be $10,000 a month. I'm just saying. I mean, you could purchase, yes, but rent, I just don't know about that. But I'm sure you could find it. I'm just telling you that literally the apartment route and whether or not it's cheaper is really going to depend on area. And the most popular place is going to be South Knoxville. Those are just kind of more like student housing that I've included. I have not gone down the rabbit hole of every apartment complex that you might consider within Knoxville. If you want the data deep dive, I talk more about pricing by zip code. So go watch the data deep dive if you're like, I want pricing by zip code. But in general, if we're looking at apartments, South Knox is somewhere between $700 to $2,000. If you're looking downtown, $1,000 to $4,000. That Cumberland Avenue situation, probably max $2,100 because that's really geared towards students. So those are some of your options. Now, okay, well, now that we know student housing costs, we know some apartment ideas. What about if I were to buy? Like, what do I want to think about? So UT campus and a lot of the available housing that you could purchase is older. So for example, you have got older buildings that have been retrofitted with like maybe a wall unit air conditioning, or maybe they don't have a laundry facility. There might be a laundry facility on site, but not in the unit. That's something you want to consider is what do you require? So if you think, okay, I think I do want to go the buying route, what's the parking situation that you require? Does it need to be walkable? Does it need to be bikeable? Do you require laundry? Do you require central heat and air? Like, what do you want? Because what you want is going to determine actually what you buy. If you're not wanting a house, then that's going to limit you to things that are closer into campus. Things that are just probably older. You could go a newer route. There are some condos in downtown that could be a really good fit. Union Avenue building, just, you know, things off Church. Any of the condos, there's condos off Hill Avenue. I mean, you've got options. You've got condos off Jackson Avenue and Gay Street. You've got all kinds of stuff. But you want to consider that if you're thinking you want to be right on campus, like, your long-term investment is probably going to be really great, because University of Tennessee is going nowhere. Those rents are going to continue to go up. However, if you have a kid who is not going to walk across the street to do their laundry, then maybe you need somewhere that has laundry. So that really just depends on like what you're looking for. The other thing to consider is, do you need convenience to like a nice grocery store? Your closest grocery store to campus is actually basically on campus. It's at Publix. It's University Commons. You can look at that. There used to be a Walmart there, but it didn't work, which I think is weird. But anyways, there's a Publix. So if you were to look at like Cumberland Avenue, you're gonna see a Publix just across. There's basically, if you know where the Aquatic Center is, it's just past the Aquatic Center. So look at Google and check that out. But you also have a CVS essentially on campus. You've got some different like stores. But does your kiddo need to be closer to Target? And like our local grocery stores, if you were gonna look, are gonna be Kroger and Food City. The Publix is convenient to campus, but the next closest Publix is North Shore. So no one's going out there. That being said, Kroger, Food City, these are more of the closer in if you're not gonna be right on campus grocery stores. And also Three Rivers Market, by the way, which is like a local farmers market / grocery store, and it's amazing. So just some more things to consider. Bikeable, walkable, parking. What do you require? All of those things. Then, if you're thinking price point, well, and I'm gonna get into this, or I get into this very specifically in the data deep dive, but what is realistic? If I pulled 3.5 mile radius from the University of Tennessee campus, over the course of the year, there were 906 transactions, and of those transactions, we had 11 total zip codes, okay? Overall, your average price, $262,710. That's your average list price. Average price per square foot, $229.16. So that's your average. So you could theoretically get something in the twos. I think that's gonna feel more like an investment property. If you are wanting nicer, you're gonna pay. So what I find is the majority of my clients have been in the range of 300 to 400, the majority. I have a couple that have purchased higher because, like I mentioned, for example, they wanted something that they can also stay in when they come into town, and they wanted it to be nicer. I have a client who has purchased a nice size house just off Cumberland Avenue. So obviously that's a bigger investment. That's a long-term investment. So this is specifically assuming that you are purchasing for the most part, the idea of your kid and them and bringing friends to rent. Now, you could obviously spend as much money as you wanted, but what I did is focus these numbers between 300 and 400,000. So in general, when you are buying this property for your kid, you can go cash, obviously, or you can do a loan. And if you do a loan and you have a mortgage, that's going to be as a second home or an investment property. And I want to tell you that I'm not a lender, so I'm going to give you blanket information, but you are welcome to call me. You know, it depends on your situation, your occupation, what you have going on. But in general, you're going to be taking out a property as an investment property, a loan on a property that's an investment property, because you're not going to be living in it full time. Your student is going to be living in it. So in general, that means you need 20% down payment. And then also you can do a 5% down payment if you put your kid on the loan, but your kid must have a credit score that qualifies. They don't have to have income. That loan can be based off your income, and you would add them on the loan as well. So that's just something to consider. So that being said, all of these numbers are assuming a 20% down, somewhere between a $300,000 and a $400,000. So we're gonna get a little bit like cross-eyed with numbers, but just for context, what does that break down? So what we said again, if you're on campus, it's 500 to 1,000. If you're off campus, it's anywhere from probably 1,000 to 4 max. I think a safe bet is somewhere between, you know, maybe a 1,500 amount. If you're wanting a little nicer, let's say 17. So that being said, if you purchase a house for 300,000, you put 20% down. This is with a 6.5% mortgage rate. Your payment with everything, that's your taxes, whatever, is $1,789 roughly. So $1,789 per month divided by 2 gives you $894.50. So you're already kind of in the green in the sense that even some of the campus properties aren't that cheap. 3 tenants put you at $596. 4 tenants at $300,000 put you at $447. That is cheap. And you can easily break even. These are break even numbers. This is meaning that how can I pay my payment not making any money? So 4 tenants is, you're sitting pretty great because you're gonna charge more than $447. Okay, right? You don't have to. I'm just telling you, like, from a rental perspective, that's just, you can, essentially what I'm telling you is you can make more than that. Okay, $350. 2 tenants. Your payment's around $2,004 depending, give or take. For 2 tenants, that's $1,000 a month. For 3 tenants, that's $668 a month. And for 4 tenants, that's $501 a month. So again, you're probably gonna charge more than $501. Maybe you're not gonna charge your kiddo, but if you get 4 bedrooms and you're gonna charge the other 3, you can still break even based on the amount. So it just depends. It's your situation, it's your thing. $400,000, that payment, 20% down, 30-year fixed loan, $2,275. 2 tenants put you at about $1,137 a month. 3 is $758 and 4 is $568. So essentially, even that $300 to $400 range with that 20% down. Now, you did have a significant down payment. I don't want to downplay that. So obviously, you're going to have cash up front that you're putting down, right? So that's kind of the unspoken thing we haven't talked about. Because yeah, when you go to rent somewhere, you're putting some sort of a rental deposit down. You're not putting a 20% down payment down. That being said, certainly based on these numbers, and these are just to break even, you can charge more and make more than just your break even amount. So just some things to consider. Like, certainly, is it possible to purchase a property for $400,000 and break even to pay your payment? Yes, it is. And then also you want to consider, like, get with your accountant, get with your tax accountant, and consider potential write-offs for this property. So that's another thing as you're looking at the tax implications, you want to get with your tax accountant to consider those things. So that being said, essentially, does it make sense? It depends on your situation. You do need money for a down payment. Again, you could go as low as 5 depending on your kiddo's credit score. But overall, there's all kinds of options when it comes to what you're looking for and what you're needing. So hopefully this has been helpful. Go to the data deep dive video, watch that, because I'm going to tell you specifically about zip codes to think about and what you can kind of expect to pay, what is good, bad, are they walkable, are they not, based on zip code, if you are going to purchase. So as always, if you have further questions, you can reach out to me directly. My cell, 865-242-9821. That is my literal cell phone number. But also you can shoot me an email. All my information is readily available. And as always, click subscribe because I have so much more to share with you. And I will see you on the next video.